They're claiming that the greatest archaeological discovery was just made at the pyramids. But what does this mean for Christianity? For a long time, the pyramids have had tons of speculation and mystery about their origin. On one side of the spectrum, you have some people that say it was definitely built by humans. We just don't know how they did it. And the other side says it was definitely aliens, a more advanced species that came over and used their advanced technology to build something that within that context and time in history can't be explained. But this latest discovery may reveal something even more mysterious. And it's possible that the narrative that all these pyramids were tombs is all wrong. And interestingly enough, some of these theories may even be explained through scripture. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. So if you're new here, or if you're not new here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're subscribed. There's a huge percentage of people that watch this channel, unfortunately, are not. All right, let's jump into the video. I'll try to keep this as simple as possible. Basically, they used radar Doppler tomography from outer space that they were able to scan to see the foundations of the pyramids, meaning that they now understand what's underneath the pyramids. And what they discovered is rather shocking, if we're going to be honest. This was posted by Jay Anderson, who basically kind of synthesized the press release, and I think he's the one that created these graphics, so I want to make sure we give him a shout out, where they show what's underneath these pyramids using this new technology that can help them scan the ground. Check this out.
The recent findings from deploying this technology are nothing short of mind-blowing, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock, in fact over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground.
That's really deep. They're going to the bedrock, meaning the foundation of the earth, which is crazy that the bedrock's so high in Egypt. You know, I didn't expect almost a mile deep, I guess, of just sand and stuff, dirt and sand. And so they're going to the very, very, very deep of the bedrock. And these pyramids have these foundations that we didn't know they had prior to this.
Massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far. This has allowed researchers to create a 3D model of the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, this model has revealed a previously unknown chamber with 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof, which in of itself is an architectural design unlike any previously documented in the Giza Pyramid.
Okay, so I've always found it odd that they spent all this time, all this money, decades, to just build tombs for dead guys. Like, I understand that the pharaohs were like godlike to them, but to spend all this money, all this resource to build something that was just a glorified burial site for a pharaoh didn't really jive with me. Seemed like something was off. Seemed like a bad waste of resource and time. It just seemed weird. And so now what they're starting to get at is that perhaps these structures are alluding to some more utility for the pyramids than just these places that house the tombs of dead guys.
Now, this design not only implies a functional purpose, but also a level of sophisticated engineering that completely blows the dynastic Egyptian model out of the water. I mean, the pyramid itself was already a massive red flag in the ancient Egyptian historical narrative, but now with this discovery, I think it's become impossible.
And so this is where all the theories start to come out, including Billy Carson's beloved Emerald Tablets.
It's also possible that this spiraling cylindrical series of structures are staircases, and I can't help but think of the channeled writings of Thoth the Atlantean, you know, the Emerald Tablets, speaking of a lost hall of records, a sacred hall of knowledge below the Giza Plateau, the halls of Amenti. Could this be the lost hall of records from the pre-flood era?
And it's interesting to hear him say the Emerald Tablets while at the same time talking about the pre-flood era, which we're definitely going to get to a little later in this video. And so everyone's favorite drunk uncle had to get in on this. This is Alex Jones, and he posted this rendition of what the foundation of it looks like. I don't know if he put this together or AI did, but this is rather spectacular. I gotta admit it. And some people even began drawing the similarities between this image and the Washington Monument and the connection of something inside of the human spirit to want to create long, tall, and deep pillars. Now, this has been an absolute boom in the woohoo community, with some even pointing to the similarities of earthing and plants and the energy of the earth being able to be harnessed by you and I. In response to the video that we looked at earlier, check out this reaction. I am reminded of these copper coil wrapped cylindrical sticks gifted to me by a friend. I was told they create some kind of an energetic effect that enhances the health and vitality of the plants. I'm not sure how they connected this to the pyramids, but I'm here for it. Needless to say, from now until they actually reveal all of the archaeological discoveries, this is a great time for the Billy Carsons of the world to have a woo-woo course. And like many things that are theories and even scams, they tend to be anchored in some degree of truth. And this is where we get into the theory that the pyramids weren't just glorified tombs for powerful dead guys, that the pyramids were actually used to harvest energy. That's right. And this is not just some crazy conspiracy. This was apparently believed by engineer Nikola Tesla. And here's a breakdown from the Y files of the theory that Nikola Tesla believed regarding this energy and how it was harvested. Check this out.
Acoustic engineers have determined the gallery resonates at 440 hertz and naturally emits an F-sharp chord. 440 hertz and the F-sharp chord have been connected to a lot of woo-woo ideas, but there's a reason for that. It's considered a sound that resonates in harmony with the earth. The builders of the pyramid knew this. Longtime Mac users will recognize this sacred chord. At the top of the gallery.
That's crazy. Now, there's a whole theory about modern music and potentially retuning certain songs to be more in line with the earth. That's a whole thing that mixing engineers talk about a lot. And so it's interesting that this is in tune and the Mac is in tune and that there's this whole connection with all of it.
Gallery is a small shaft leading to the king's chamber. The opening is 8.4 by 4.8 inches. This is the perfect size for hydrogen microwaves to pass into the king's chamber, which also resonates at 440 hertz and F-sharp. Above the king's chamber are 5 layers of granite beams, stacked and separated by air gaps. This is called the relieving chamber because it was believed that this interior structure relieved the weight of the pyramid. That's not what it does. The beams are smooth on 3 sides, but rough cut on the top. Christopher Dunn believes the reason for the rough cut is this is how the beams were tuned. The builders could vibrate the granite beams and slowly chip away at the stone until they resonated with an F-sharp chord, which they do. The king's chamber is what's known as a Helmholtz resonator. When you blow air across the top of a bottle and create sound, that's a Helmholtz resonator. Change the volume of liquid in the bottle, or change the volume of stone within the chamber, you change the pitch. The entire complex is a giant musical instrument. Now, some skeptics reluctantly agree that the Great Pyramid has musical properties. But for skeptics to consider the pyramid as a power plant, they would need evidence to show that a giant stone pyramid would respond to electromagnetic energy.
Okay,
there was no...
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how we make the leap from it vibrating to it being a power plant. Within just making this video, there's some very obvious things that our buddy from Why Not Files got completely wrong. For starters, the F-sharp chord is not 440 frequency. The F-sharp note is also not 440 frequency, okay? It's 369 hertz. Every single note on a piano makes a specific frequency when you hit it. Respectfully, it makes me question how much of the rest of the video is inaccurate based on this whole, the tombs are connected to 440 hertz when he's saying F-sharp chords, and that's not how chords work, nor is this the actual frequencies of the notes. But that's neither here nor there.
Whether true or not, it's scientifically possible that the Great Pyramid was a structure for creating, harnessing, and focusing energy. The exterior was made of material that insulates electricity. The interior was made of material that conducts electricity. The chambers were made of material that creates electricity. The next piece of evidence is the pyramid's ability to focus EM energy. In 2018, scientists used radio waves at different frequencies to see if the Great Pyramid would interact with electromagnetic waves of a resonant length. Their experiments proved that in a resonant state, the pyramid can concentrate electromagnetic energy in the internal chambers as well as under its base. Resonance in the pyramid can be induced by radio waves with the lengths ranging from 200 to 600 meters. The closer to 200 meters, the more dramatic the effect. A year after that, in 2019, Eric Wilson published a paper called A Large-Scale Thermal Acoustic Generator. The paper describes how, when granite and other rocks are vibrated, electrons will migrate through the rock and up to the surface. By combining science and music, the builders of the pyramid created a power-generating machine tuned to the natural harmonic of the Earth's vibration that primarily comes from the tidal energy created by the moon's gravity. This technology, created thousands of years ago, could generate unlimited clean energy. But how did they get the energy out? That brings us back to Tesla.
So regardless on the theories around frequencies and whether the pyramids can harvest energy, you're kind of left with two different views of this. Before I explain those, what we do know is that it likely was not ancient Egyptians that had this sort of revolutionary technology. So we're kind of left with two possibilities. One is that it was some other more advanced civilization that built these sorts of things that got wiped out by the flood. That's also referenced in the Bible and referenced in many other stories from antiquity, or it was aliens. And the alien story tends to be very compelling. This is where Billy Carson gets his emerald tablets from. This is where a lot of people find intrigue in that another species that's more technologically advanced came down and gave humans this advanced technology. But there's only one problem with that. And my buddy, Nate Sala from Wise Disciple, who's actually going to be at the Blessed God Summit, more on that later, did a great job explaining why the idea of aliens coming here is unlikely. Check this out.
We even know on a very limited scale that there are other beings that God has created who, it appears, do not share our unique quality of being made in the image of God. I'm referring to angels right now. So, is it possible for there to be other beings that God has created somewhere else in the universe? And the answer is yes, of course, it's possible. But that's not the question to ask, in my opinion. I think a better question to ask is it plausible that the experiences that folks are having are with alien beings from another planet in our universe? And as far as I can understand, as I understand the issue, the answer is no, it is not plausible. There's a really great book. It's called The Privileged Planet. Well, according to the authors of The Privileged Planet, the Earth fits into the Goldilocks zone, which is a rare environment in the universe for life to thrive. As far as we can tell, only our planet fits into this Goldilocks zone. There does not appear to be another Goldilocks zone out there in the observable universe. So that's why I say this is not plausible that there are alien beings from another planet. But, okay, let's concede that for argument's sake. Let's say they do exist. Okay, well, now they need to travel all the way here. The problem is the nearest galaxy is something like 25,000 years away, and that's if the spaceship travels at the speed of light. So now we're talking about beings that would have to live unbelievably ridiculous long periods of time, and in order to survive getting here. And that's why I say it's unlikely. It's implausible that there are alien beings from some other planet in a galaxy far, far away traveling here. Now, maybe we're not dealing with interstellar travel, right? Maybe we're dealing with interdimensional travel. Okay, that's more interesting because the Bible appears to touch on this notion, right? Okay, Christians in the audience, here's a question for you. Where is heaven located? If you look at the creation account in Genesis and you sort of, reflect on what we know about science, well, then clearly God created the universe at a finite moment in the past. This means that space and time and matter, all these things came into existence at some point. And if you rewind time enough down to the moment of creation, what you have before creation, if I can use those words to make sense of that moment, what that is an environment outside of space, time, and matter. To the best of our knowledge, to me, this is another dimension.
He goes on to point out that in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, the Apostle Paul, who's writing the church in Ephesus, kind of alludes to this fairly clearly in verse 12. He says, we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places. That there is an unseen world that is happening. And is it possible that spirits coming from the unseen world are able to impact different parts of history from a different dimension into our dimension? Well, I would argue yes. I would argue, just like Nate did, that this is actually more plausible than this idea that aliens came and gave Egyptians sophisticated tools that we don't have access to today, and that's how they were able to build these super mile deep pillars that the pyramids then stood on top of, and they were potentially even able to use some form of energy from these pyramids. And if you think about it, that is a beautiful part about the gospel narrative, the idea that Jesus, who is God, Yahweh, is immaterial and then comes in a material physical body, lives the life we couldn't live, dies the death we should have died on the cross in our place for our sins, then rises on the third day and empowers us to usher in heaven on this side of eternity. The same way we see him in the Lord's Prayer say, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Heaven is another realm. Heaven is not a physical place, though there will be a new heaven and new earth when Jesus returns. That's the beautiful part. And all of us who are followers of Jesus get to get in on this mission with him. And that is exactly the heart of what we're attempting to do with the Bless God Summit. Like I told you guys, my buddy Nate Sala is going to be there. We have 3 days. Day 1 is all about worldview. And so this is really a worldview type of conversation. If you believe that there is another realm, then you believe that truth and lies and goodness and evil exist, and that there's a real war happening. So we have Dr. Sean McDowell talking about the evidence for the resurrection, Preston Perry, Mike Jones from Inspiring Philosophy, Lila Rose, Nick D, and of course, my buddy Nate Sala, who's going to be there, Dallas Jenkins from The Chosen. And so day 1 is going to be discussing this idea of worldview and what does it mean to have a Christian worldview. And then day 2, we go from worldview to virtue, because the virtue becomes the bridge for us to impact the world, impact the marketplace, impact those out there with our worldview through our virtue. So if you want more information on that, go to blessgodsummit.com. You can get yourself a virtual ticket, or you can get yourself an in-person ticket. We also just confirmed Alex O'Connor versus David Wood debate on if Jesus claimed to be God. That is happening on the 2nd day of the conference. So go to blessgodsummit.com, get your tickets. And if you want to hear how 80 years later, Billy Graham's plan is finally starting to make sense, check out this talk I did at the Apologetics Canada conference right after my man West Health went up. We'll have this over here. All right, I'll see you guys over there. Peace.